Welcome to Daikaiju Network, where we have a very healthy obsession with kaiju. I'm your co-host, Kent, and with me is your other co-host,
Jason. How's it going, everyone?
And so here we are, returning again to Kamen Rider. This time we are covering 3 more episodes 16 through 18. But before we dive into that, I just want to say that starting next month, in celebration of Kong's 90th birthday, we're going to have another Kong month. It's going to be the first time in 10 years that we've devoted the entire month of March to Kong. The plan for that is 2 weeks from now, we are going to have a podcast where we're going to discuss just Kong. I mean, we're going to discuss his legacy. We're going to discuss his movies. It's basically going to be a potpourri type of episode where anything goes. I intend on 7-part documentary on the original of it that came with the DVD set I bought. Gosh, it was like maybe 2003. I actually haven't watched that entire documentary series, so that'll be interesting. And then 2 weeks after that, we're going to do our first commentary of the year, which will be Son of Kong. And that'll wrap up our month-long celebration of 90 years of the big...
Hard to believe because it just seemed like yesterday we did the 80th anniversary, but that was obviously 10 years ago.
I know, it's crazy how time flies. I remember, I think about that period every once in a while. It's always the King Kong side. I'm like, man, it seemed like maybe a year ago, but no, that was like 10 years ago. And I remember we did the commentary on Peter Jackson's King Kong, and
downstairs in the parents' basement, just with the card table.
You were on break. I was on
everything
break.
Up. Yeah.
Actually, I had already graduated, so I was just visiting.
Yeah. So, anyways, as far as the housekeeping part, if you see a subscribe button down below the video, wherever you're watching, make sure to hit that subscribe button as well as the like button. And you can also find us everywhere, all in one place at our Linktree URL displayed there, / Daikaiju Network, and video platforms, obviously YouTube, Twitch, Rumble, Facebook Live, and as well as Odyssey, and we're also on audio platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, as well as TuneIn. And you can find both video and audio versions of our episodes at our own website at daikaijunetwork.com.
All right, so unless you have something else you want to add, we can dive right into more Kamen Rider.
Well, I think there probably was something, but I can't recall that I can really think of. I don't know if you stumbled across any recent kaiju-related news, kaiju tokusatsu-related news.
I have fan theories and fans trying to make an argument for a particular type of kaiju that either will or will not be the villain in the upcoming Godzilla Kong movie, and as a result, to me, that's not news.
Oh, yeah, it's really not news because I think I sort of brought that up some time ago. I think it was maybe a couple or so months ago that I've stumbled across a few of those theories, as well as like some people are trying to theorize like, oh, Space Godzilla is going to be in it, or Bylane or Destroya. I mean, Destroya could be one of those feasible ones, especially with the oxygen destroyer, but who knows?
Well, the funny thing was I saw someone posted a video, and I don't even bother wasting my time with them, but someone of why Destroya could not work, and it had something to do with things that took place within shit, but I just read the little description.
But then I would like to say that Destroyer was created by the Oxygen Destroyer, which it was used in King of the Monsters, and I don't know how they sort of came up with how Destroyer wouldn't be possible. But anyways, yeah, it's like Now we're getting into this here. That you bring it up.
Here's my fanboy theory on this about it. But in all seriousness, here's what I think it's going to be. I think it definitely will be another Toho kaiju.
Mm-hmm.
What I don't know. However, I do not believe it's going to be Destroya, nor do I believe it'll be Space Godzilla. I think those two kaiju could be a little too extreme, at least right now for the MonsterVerse.
But for Space Godzilla, there isn't really anything feasible for him to pop up in the next film, obviously. And then, it's the too extreme. Although they've sort of alluded with King Ghidorah in the second movie with him being from outer space. So they've sort of already gone there, but
not in the realms
not
Toho.
Just yet. Yeah, not just yet.
Yeah. But anyway, at hand, episodes 16 through 18 of Kamen Rider. This series definitely... on the one hand, it seems like we've been going at it for quite a while, but on the other hand, it's like, we're still pretty much in its infancy because we haven't even done 20 episodes yet out of
I was going to say
60 something episodes.
I was going to say it's like
90 episodes.
It's like what's the percentage point here, or which like where we're currently at, and then it's like I feel like we haven't really scratched the surface of this episode, nor Spectre Man yet.
Here, let me do some calculations because there's 98 episodes. We just got done with 18.
Yeah,
we're 18% of the way through.
Is it like 18 point or 17 point something?
It's like 18.367, and then a bunch of.
So we're getting close to 1/4 of the way through.
You could look at it that way, I guess.
Yeah. But yeah,
Spectre Man, we're closer to being done because that is a 60-something odd series, like a 63 episode series or something like that.
Yeah, much closer to that than. Yeah, let me check Spectre Man here. Another round of research, by the way. Spectre Man.
Okay, so we done 4 divided by how many here?
63.
Okay, 63. So I was right. We're 22.2222222222222222222222222222222222222222222222222222222222222222222222222222222222222222222222222222222222222222222222222222222222222222222222222222222222222222222.
So
We're closer to a quarter of the way being done with Spectre Man than we are with Kamen Rider.
But yeah, it just feels like that we have not scratched the surface for both episodes.
Which is interesting because we started this September?
August, September, somewhere around there.
Okay, so here's what we got to do. Some of you are going to see the back room. What we're going to have to do is maybe either consider having more podcast episodes consecutively devoted to Kamen Rider and or look into doing like maybe 5 episodes at a time per podcast.
4 or 5, whichever.
Because this is going to take it took us to do the original Ultraman when we were doing 3 at a time. It took us a year and a half? Was it?
Somewhere around.
And that was a 49 episode series.
No, it was 50 something.
The original Ultraman?
Yeah, let me check here. Time for another round of research, by the way.
Anybody out there who does research as part of your business and you want to sponsor our podcast, please reach out to us, daikaijunetwork@gmail.com. For a small fee.
39 episodes. Both of us
even
were
worse.
Right.
Okay,
both of us were wrong.
Okay, so we're looking at what? Let's see, 39 plus 39, 68. No, 78. We're looking at at this pace, we're looking at 2.5 years of doing Kamen Rider.
Man.
So
I think we should have probably thought about this before we started.
No, we did, but we were okay with it. Now we're not. So, so we're looking at being done. Okay, so let's.
Well,
see.
I think we did talk about it's like if it takes too long, we should probably reconsider maybe how much episodes that we intake.
Well, yeah, I think that's something, and the fact too that we aren't doing G-Fest this year. We're not going to have the obligatory 1 month period where we don't do any podcasting. So
although
there's at least 2 more episodes we could do.
Although we did do a 1 month break between our year end and then towards the end of last month.
Yeah, that was unintentional though. Like that just kind of happened that way. Part of it was because my wife had eye surgery kind of early January, and then you were doing something else too. Like it wasn't planned out that way.
Yeah,
it just happened.
Right. But yeah. Anyways.
All right, so we're gonna dive in. Episode 16 here, titled "Wrestler of the Devil, Pyrosaurus."
Mine is the Devil's Wrestler, Pyrosaurus.
That's better. my set has the dumbest titles.
Yours is always has the dumb titles. I think.
Well, the funny thing is I thought our sets were more or less the same, and I found out very early on that's not the case, which on the one hand makes for interesting commentary, but on the other hand is a little annoying.
Yeah, and I thought as far as Spectre-Man goes, I thought we had the same sets, but obviously that doesn't seem to be the case either.
Nope. It's just, but again, it provides interesting commentary, other people's takes on
bootlegs.
I just forgot the term. Translations. But anyway, starting off episode 16, I found it interesting that in the opening monologue, they didn't even bother to mention Takeshi also being a writer. It's almost as if the show was attempting to retcon itself and just
erasing just erasing Takashi's shows and history.
And if I were the actor who played Takeshi, I would feel not only angry but like really bummed, because I'm going, look, my 2 legs are broken because of a stunt I did on your stupid show, and you can't even bother to acknowledge that I exist.
Well, they sort of did in the last round of episodes where they just say, "Oh, he's just out, around the globe, kind of taking care of the other shocker outposts."
Well, that's the thing. It's like 1 or 2 line drop in the last batch that we covered. But in this batch anyways, I mean, he's not even mentioned. And I would assume up until what did we talk about last time? It's up not until like episode 52 or something like that when he actually comes back.
I think episode 40 or somewhere around there.
Or something like that. High 40s, low 50s.
And then talk about Takashi, also Ruriko. It's like she's been erased.
well, like what happened to her? I read nothing on her. Like she didn't get into an accident or anything. Like, can you imagine being her and being like looking at this guy playing Takeshi like, I'm sidelined because you decided to break your legs on a stunt. Like I don't get paid for some reason because of you, and the stupid studio doesn't want me to be a part of this either because I'm somehow attached to you on some level.
Yeah, it's like be in her shoes. Like I didn't do jack shit, and then I'm the one that gets let go or whatever because of you.
It's so unfair. Again, right? I do believe there's an underlying thing of misogyny going on in this series, because we talked about it a few times with Wasp Woman, and I think we talked about it with Ruriko in a few roles. I wouldn't say that because it seems like that they have more gals in these batch of episodes. You have that one shocker gal, Maya, which, by the way, she looks
pretty dang hot, I would have to say. And then you have those rider gals too.
The thing that was sort of in the back of my mind as I was watching this batch of episodes was that I really bet Jason's having an awesome time with this. And I got something interesting to say when we get to episode 17. I think it's Mari that she drops that made me realize, oh, we're going there now, are we? But
Yeah,
back to episode 16 again.
Yeah, I'm going to have to wait and see what you have to say on that one.
Yeah, I just thought that whole thing was really strange. It was almost as if the show was trying to retcon itself. And then this little boy, Kyoshi, is watching his older brother Kusaka, who is this.
By the way, before you get into that, you had at the very beginning Shocker experimenting with kind of this new general pyrosaurs, producing the death fog on bus passengers and stuff, killing them. But then for some reason, with using the death fog being produced within this pyrosaurus, it also kills himself too. And then Myra is like, we gotta find someone stronger to withstand producing this death fog. And then that's where they shot the Shocker leader, and then this was it Myra, and then this Hurricane Joe, which is it's a pretty fascinating type of dude, by the way.
He reminds me of another pro wrestler.
Well, he also reminds me, the one guy from what's that one show that we just watched recently? Kind of has these. He's this one general with the silver face, and then kind of this weird looking 3 hands or something like that.
Wait a minute, is it a tokusatsu?
Yeah, it's a tokusatsu show. I know we just did this.
Ultra 7?
No. I can't.
What tokusatsu series did we watch recently other than Ultra 7?
I don't know. I'll have to take a look at it, but anyways, but yeah, Hurricane Joe is a pretty fascinating character, by the way. But then like Shocker leader is like they wanted to capture this pro wrestler Noboru as the next experiment to become the next Pyrosaurus, and then just kind of jumping off what you were trying to.
Yeah, and so this Kusaka, Noboru Kusaka, is supposed to be like a district champion of sorts, or something like that, and he's supposed to be, like you said, Shocker's next kind of target as far as potentially being the next Pyrosaurus. And they are saying this guy is really big and tough. And first of all, that wrestling ring announcer was totally redubbed, even in Japanese. His line delivery was way off. But this Kusaka...
it was Johnny Sacco in a flying robot, that one silver face alien-looking general. He kind of reminds me of him.
Oh, you're meaning the 3-fingered, the not 3-hand. Oh, yeah. Botanist.
Yeah, Botanist, yeah.
Yeah.
He kind of reminds me of him.
That was like 2 years ago, dude.
Yeah, I know. Or actually close to 3 years ago.
Well, not even quite 2.5 yet. But they're looking at this Kusaka guy, and I'm thinking to myself, this Kusaka guy, other than the fact he is beating a guy that's almost twice his size with ease, you look at this Kusaka's body and you're going,
yeah, the way he's built is like he just looks like an average guy.
This guy is thin, and he's got like saggy man tits. I mean, he does. He does. Like when he stands up, there's very little muscle on him. I mean, it's just I don't get it. And yeah, in the show, he beats this guy twice his size, which is the way they even portrayed in the episode is not believable to begin with. But
yeah, I was just thinking about that too. Is like, could they just find someone in his place to be a little bit more fit? Maybe just switch the one other guy that he was like twice his size.
Well, that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
Or
maybe
Hurricane Joe.
Yeah.
Because if you're bad enough villains, you're willing to cannibalize some of your own guys for something greater if you think it's going to work. So why not?
Mm-hmm.
I don't get it, but whatever. Shocker has been pretty incompetent because, first of all, you're always able to find their hideouts to begin with. So they have a bad way of closing up their hideouts.
Track record.
But he turns into another Pyrosaurus, and so then he and Kamen Rider meet up and have a little fight.
Yeah. So, yep. With Shocker turning Noboru into Pyrosaurus, they test his abilities to make sure that he's capable of taking on Kamen Rider. And then you had Tachibana timing Hirado in a motocross track, but then gets ambushed by Pyrosaurus. And then another scene you had Noboru's little brother when he sees this Satan mask guy. kind of a weird name. And then he thinks that the way that he looks like he's his older brother, but then it's like he tries to talk to him, and then this Satan mask guy like grabs this Noboru's little brother, tries to throw the kid, but then is saved by Kamen Rider and confronts Pyrosaurus, which transforms from Satan Mask, and then as well as confronted by Hurricane Joe. And that's sort of where the 16th episode sort of ends right there, kind of right in the middle of the confrontation between Kamen Rider and Pyrosaurus.
And don't you think, though, it might be a jab at the United States that Satan Mask is from the All-American League in their wrestling? Like, don't you think that'd be a jab at us?
A little bit, but I don't know.
I thought it might
what
be.
The reason is, but
well, we were still occupying Japan. In fact, I think we still even are at this very moment, occupying Japan bases. At some point.
Well, we have bases over in Okinawa, but oh well.
I thought it was weird, though, too. Like, they thought they had killed Kamen Rider in their first outing because they threw him in, like, this small pond or lake. And then when Kamen Rider shows up late, there's no explanation for how Kamen Rider survived or what have you, and it doesn't appear as if Shocker is shocked at all that Kamen Rider is back after they believed they had defeated him in that first encounter. They just kind of expected it and assumed, yeah, he's going to come back, and
it always happens.
I know,
even in the final episode too.
Yeah, I know, and to me that again, that's mishy-mashy writing, because they were like, oh yeah, we finally defeated him and blah blah blah, and then he shows up later, and no one's like, what? Huh? Like, where are you here? And Kamen Rider doesn't give any sort of monologue of like, I held my breath for 2 years. I have incredible lung power, and as a result, I survive. Some stupid baloney like that, where like, okay.
Like I said, just wait till you get to episode 18. It gets a little bit more outlandish.
Well, yeah, I'll save my comments for that when we get there. but yeah, this was a very interesting episode. I thought it was fun, but I'll just go into my final thoughts here, I guess. A really entertaining and fun episode that brings in some good martial arts battles and a fun villain. Although, again, I don't buy into Kusaka being this all-powerful wrestler considering his physical stature, but nevertheless, I'm willing to go with it just enough to where the story takes me. Oh, to see where the story takes me. Not a bad episode, and I gave it a B+.
Yeah, this one's a pretty decent episode. In my opinion, too. It's like when it comes to a lot of these tokusatsu episodes, they always sort of focus on certain subjects, and Kamen Rider is no different from other tokusatsu episodes. Now we've got, like in this episode and the next episodes, mostly focused around wrestling. Here, you got this wrestling guy, and then couple other past episodes too. You got Mexico, and then some of the other things too, and everything. But yeah, this, like I said, Hurricane Joe is a pretty interesting character. I hope he sticks around for the entire series here, and then it's a pretty interesting thing that they've got going here with Pyrosaurus. I'm not sure how they came up with him, like in that regard, and as well as this death fog thing. So
Japanese tokusatsu.
I'm not sure what's the relation here. I mean, it's like in the past episodes, you had some kind of relation with like the generals being made per episode, leading up to before Takashi kind of had his own little incident, breaking both of his legs and stuff, and then being benched for some time here. And then it seems like after his incident, then you kind of have some kind of randomness going on with the generals, like the monster generals and all that. But anyways, beside the point, as far as episode 16, I would at least give this one a B.
All right. So episode 17 is titled Deathmatch in the Ring, Defeat Pyrosaurus.
I would say this is the first time that both of our titles exactly match.
Hopefully there's more, because we got like
Hallelujah.
80 more episodes to go. In another like 1 3/4 years.
I would actually say about 80 more episodes left.
And the thing I wanted to bring up, where I was saying here about 5 or so minutes ago of, okay, we're going there, is that Hayato is missing out on a potential 4 or 5 way with the girls in this series, because Mari was mentioning to the other girl at the club at the beginning of this episode something to the effect of, how dare Hayato, like, not come and hang out with us girls, like, yeah, like he wants to hang out with us, or something to that effect. And I'm going, okay. Kamen Rider 4 or 5 way. All right. Let's see where this goes.
Why am I not surprised?
Well, I'm surprised it took this long for anything like that to come up. And the guy, I'm sure, playing Takeshi is going, damn it. Like, I'm sure he was at home watching this, just so pissed.
Yeah. But anyways, you had Kamen Rider and Pyrosaurus continuing battling against one another. But then you had, for some reason, Kamen Rider just bailing out on the bout between him and Pyrosaurus there, which to me is kind of a pussy move. If you think about it. Even though it's like he's saying, saying like Pyrosaurus being a bit stronger, but then I was like, I don't really know because he's not a cyborg. Because with cyborgs, they tend to be a bit stronger compared to a lot of organisms like out there and the like. And it's like, I mean, Kamen Rider could just easily kick his ass. Even the next general in the next episode here, but yeah, he just pushes out.
Well, and you got the death fog coming from Pyrosaurus as well, and so I don't know. Maybe it's just one of those things where you don't want to even try to take any chances on it or something. But I don't know. But yeah, it makes no sense. There's no legitimate reason, at least that I saw or heard, that explains it.
Mm-hmm. And then right after that, you had the two boys, one including Noboru's little brother, that they're trying to plan to unmask Satan Mask and escape from Taki's place there, where you kind of had him for the time being to watch over them. And then they go over to the wrestling club where Maya was, and as well as Satan Mask, and then the two boys unmask him, but then turns out to be Hurricane Joe. But then later we find out that there's, you have Hurricane Joe being an imposter Satan Mask, and then you have the actual Satan Mask, which obviously is Noboru and turning into Pyrosaurus there. But then it's like, it's so weird that once you put the mask on for Pyrosaurus, it turns into just a regular Satan Mask in everything.
I'm glad. And I wrote it down too, and it not only I kind of see it in a weird way, putting a person's face on to an extent, but not the human body.
Yeah, and then the reason behind having an imposter Satan Mask and then the actual Satan Mask that is Pyrosaurus, I'm not entirely sure the reason behind it. I mean, should just go with just a Satan Mask. I mean, that's still the perfect disguise, really.
Well, yeah, but again, it's a kid's show.
Still,
I know. No. You are right. No, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying, again, it's a kid's show, so you got to have some cool creature deal going on here.
I know, but still, it's like, it's just going a little bit too far. It's like, why have an imposter Satan Mask, which turns out to be Hurricane Joe disguising it, while you have the actual one, which when you put the mask on Pyrosaurus, he just turns into a regular human, which is still the perfect disguise. So why even bother having a double?
Yeah,
Even though it's a kid show,
no. Like I said, I'm not disagreeing with you.
Yeah, even though it's a kid show, why even go that far? So, you tell me.
Look, to kind of go back and to remind you of a phrase that we even on this podcast have used numerous times. Toho Science, I'm just going to kind of rename that and say Tokusatsu Science. Just to cover not just this show, but Spectre Man, Ultra 7, the sadly disappointing Ultra 7 Ultraman, like
Johnny Sacco.
I mean, you name it. I mean, but see, here's the thing, here's a little bit of an indulge me for a moment type of off-ramp thing. That's what makes this stuff fun. I mean, sure, as an adult, you're able to catch things more than what you could as a kid. And a lot of that is because you've seen more shows and movies. You are able to just kind of figure things out and find things out more so than if you're a kid just kind of just taking it in as it comes. But then on top of that, too, that's what makes this stuff so much fun because let's face it, outside of like with the Godzilla movies, outside of our initial love of dinosaurs and then just being these boys that want to see, monsters destroy cities, as people, I think it was August Rigoni had said there's something uniquely Japanese about these films. There's a way in terms of at least how the stories are told with the tokusatsu genre, and the fact too that just like in America, American monster movies on some level have an underlying layer of kind of that Western mythology attached to it that goes back, to England and France and Germany and all that stuff. Whereas with tokusatsu, it's got the underlying Japanese mythology and sometimes religion and all that stuff underneath too. And so it's something more unique because, when you grow up in Japan, you probably are watching this and you're probably like, yeah, I might like it. I enjoy it, but I like the American stuff more because you're not as familiar with the American stuff. Whereas here, obviously, hey, look, it's obvious. We got a podcast that's about, kaiju and more specifically Japanese stuff.
Yeah, it's like we've been doing this podcast for 13 years. So I think it should be obvious by now.
But yeah, I mean, it's, it's not just something we enjoy, obviously. There's also a lot of content. So again, we've been doing this for a while, but also because there's something unique about it. And part of it is because we have a podcast. I have watched a lot of tokusatsu stuff for quite some time. But I find myself too, like time, if I want to watch a movie, I get a hankering a lot of the time for something tokusatsu because there's something fun about it.
That or other Japanese related films too.
Yeah, and even older American science fiction fare. Because even in the United States back in the 60s, the larger studios had these smaller studios that were making these lower budget monster fare films and that were very popular with the youth and teenagers and young adults at the time. And it was a time in which, as so many of us here in America are saying, like, Hollywood is afraid to take risks anymore. Hollywood wasn't afraid to take risks back then because part of it is they're like, okay, we got this smaller Allied Alliance studio here, or Allied Artists, studio. We'll give them a smaller budget. They will make these goofy monster movies that have a budget of like $50,000. They'll make them look decent enough, and these movies will actually make like $200,000. Like, we're making a profit off of this, and it's part of it is because, hey, we got this goofy monster movie. We're not afraid to go into outlandish territory here. And yeah, you could argue even then, some of the American movies, like let's say Earth versus the Spider, may not necessarily be as outlandish as something like Kamen Rider. Yeah, that's probably true. But again, that's what sets tokusatsu apart from not just something like Earth versus the Spider, but most other American fare as well, is that they're willing to go to outlandish places that really, when you think about it, is pretty stupid and makes no sense. But again, no one else was doing it, and very few other people have done something similar since, unless it's some type of a extended sequel of sorts. So, that's what makes it fun. What the hell were we even talking about to begin with? The Pyrosaur transformation, is that it? Why they even would do Pyrosaurus to begin with?
Disguise things. That just went into a completely different tangent.
Well, I told you. I said this is an indulge me moment, but I totally forgot the original point we were trying to make here.
But anyways, after the boys unmasked the imposter Satan mask here, you had Pyrosaurus go into this go-go dance venue testing out his death fog, which he succeeds and doesn't kill himself after using the death fog. And this is where he had a couple of those rider girls there, but they were in a different area of this venue, which
They were in the bathroom.
luckily they were not affected at all. And then it was just kind of weird that is everyone sleeping and everything, and then and then it's like, hey waiter, can you like get us something? And then this guy, it seems like he was still alive, but then all of a sudden turns into this like really fake skeleton. I'm not sure why they didn't grab like one of those scientific type of skeletons that they always use, but they just sort of made their own type of skeleton.
It looked like someone took a block of foam and carved a skull out of it.
Yeah. I'm just like I said, I'm not sure why they didn't use one of those scientific type of skeleton things that they've always used in these tokusatsu shows, but they eventually had some kind of money to make their own. But so
faint.
Yeah.
And then they're taken back to Tachibana's place, and at one point, while they're still out, Tachibana, I thought in a weird way, was sort of macking on him because he was saying how cute they look. But then one of the other girls kind of looks at him weird, like like you're so much older than they are. And he's like, well, I don't have any daughters of my own, so yeah. It's as if the writers caught themselves in that moment when they wrote that line. They're like, oh, we got to have Tachibana rectify this here. So.
Or they should have just completely just taken it out at the beginning.
Yeah, but he's to me it was creepy when it was said. I'm like, he's macking on him. Well, it's almost as if you could look at this as some old guy roofing. Like this is getting creepy. I mean, first we're talking about a 4 and 5 way type of thing. Now we're macking on girls that like have fainted, but like it could be taken another way. Like it just.
But anyways, you had in one of the scenes later, you had Satan Mask being escorted to the wrestling venue, but you see both Hayato and Taki, where you had Hayato following Satan Mask while Taki was going to investigate within the hotel, but then runs into Noboru's little brother there, and then one of the scenes later, Hayato confronts Satan Mask, which obviously turns out to be the imposter.
Surprise.
With King Joe, and battles him, as well as the Shocker minions, where Taki comes into play, helping him with Hayato, then turning into Kamen Rider. Heads to confront the real Satan Mask at the wrestling venue there before it's too late, with Purosaurus using the death fog on the spectators and everything, which he does arrive on time and faces Satan Mask in the wrestling ring there. I'm not sure how Kamen Rider finds one of those robes there, which it was a bit strange the way that he came in there. And then once everyone get this little bit of chaos in the wrestling venue, and then you had the Rider girls confront Maya there, along with Tachibana and Taki fending off the Shocker minions there. And then Purosaurus does use the death fog, but Kamen Rider isn't affected by the death fog. And then eventually Purosaurus is defeated. And I think this is the first time in this series where I think I might be wrong, where you had the general, like these generals from Shocker, turn him back into the regular human being and then gaining all the consciousness back.
Okay, before we even there, you like moved on from a point that I was wanting to make a little bit earlier, which was I love a good fight in a lumber yard. This is the point where Kamen Rider believes he has found Satan Mask. Instead, it's the Hurricane Joe version of Satan Mask, and then a fight ensues in this lumberyard. And I thought to myself, how did that work out? Did the production crew just decide, where should we have it? And then did someone go scouting and they found this lumberyard and they're like, that's it. And then what were the negotiations like with this lumberyard where they went in like, hey, look, man, we're from whatever the production studio is that produces Kamen Rider. No, I did not do my homework when it came to this series. Toei. I thought it was Toei, but I wasn't sure. But yeah, we're from Toei. We got this show Kamen Rider. Oh yeah, my kid likes that. Okay, yeah, go on. Well, we looked at your lumberyard and we decided, look, there's some dangerous shit here. And we thought that would be an awesome place to have a battle here. Sure, go right ahead. I just need a little pinchy green up front here. Sure, why not? All right, now we got a battle in a lumberyard. My God, isn't life good to see your favorite superhero fight a villain in a lumberyard? I probably expounded upon that more than what was necessary, but
well, and then with that lumberyard. With that lumberyard scene is that it seems like it gets a little bit apparent when it came to like kind of the whole like supposed contact and everything is like you really notice in some areas within the scene where like that they were a bit too far like away from punching, and then it seems like some people didn't quite act like that they were punched or kicked, that sort of thing. So it's like maybe have a little bit more time to kind of actually act out like you're being hit and be a little bit closer.
Well, and my voice. Wow.
What are you, a teenager now?
I'm still going through puberty at the age of 38.
Wow, it's taken a long time.
Hey, man, that just means bigger balls. But anyway, we're not going to talk about my balls.
Yeah. With that sort of accent, the way how you're trying to pronounce balls.
God damn it. I've gotten used to the point, though, when it comes to something like Kamen Rider, where you have multiple people involved in a fight. That's going to happen. Something like Spectre Man, it doesn't happen too often because usually it's either one-on-one or one-on-two. So you could still once in a while tell that punches are being missed big time. It's not as bad, though, because obviously there's fewer people you got to choreograph with. And as a result, it's a little bit easier, I'm sure, as the actor to remember your moveset and the timing of that move set as well. But when you got a bunch of other people, it becomes that some of these choreographers probably, or should I say, some of these actors playing these fighters may not necessarily be actors in the sense of choreographing fights, perhaps. So there's little, if any, experience there. And again, to just hammer this thing home, and I'm sure it's going to far be it from the last time we even mentioned it, the just lack of production time on this stuff too. I'm sure there was very little, if any, time to practice, some of this stuff as well. It probably was like, okay, they probably even planned it out in that moment, just moments before shooting that, okay, boom, 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 and then again, in the chaotic haphazardness of all these people being around and the fact you got to try to, film it at a decent enough speed to where it looks halfway believable. Just some people are probably going to forget and get confused. I'm sure that's a large part of it too. Just when you don't have a whole lot of time to practice this stuff properly, you get things like that. And I've come to just accept that as a part of this series, and really anything else tokusatsu related where the hero or just a bunch of people are coming together to fight all at once, at least with these older shows. But
Yeah.
going back to this rule that you were talking about, I'm glad you caught that too, that Kusaka ends up turning back into his old self. And this was something, I'm not one of those fanboys where I'm going to be like,
I've got a fan theory.
no, not a fan theory, but you get so pissed off at something ridiculous like Godzilla 98 and you feel like your whole life has been ruined. But I was confused and at the same time annoyed at the fact that the show at this very moment broke its own rule, because one of the main rules it had established from the very get-go was the fact that Shocker kidnapped people, turned them into cyborgs, erased their memory, and imbued their minds with fighting skills, physically transformed them as well, so that not only did they look like this weird creature or plant or whatever that they morphed into, but also had certain abilities and traits to make them even more deadly. And the fact that somehow Kusaka is the first one in this series to, like you said, completely go back to normal. Somehow his memory comes back to him as well. Somehow the bionicle stuff inside of him is removed, I guess.
All I have to say, the simple answer for all of this. Yes, that's right. Tokusatsu science.
Well, and here's my other theory on that too, outside of just tokusatsu science, because the show over these last 2 episodes has spent so much time with Kyoshi and how much he loves his big brother, is that I think the writers were like, look, we can't kill this little boy's brother. Like, that would be even more harsh. And I think they decided, we got to break this rule here, because otherwise this is not going to work. And I think that's the main reason behind it. So
yeah, and I hope that this doesn't continue on, like
I hope it doesn't either.
Be an actual trend. Although in the next episodes, it sort of doesn't do that. It's just still sort of the same thing. But I just hope that with what they did here, that it doesn't sort of make a trend for the remaining 80 episodes.
Right, because that's one of the things that's made Shocker so deadly, is that more or less in their own roundabout way, they've killed someone.
Mm-hmm.
Because outside of the fact the villain we know is eventually going to be destroyed by Kamen Rider, outside of that, they wipe the person's memory and like physically mess with them. So,
yeah,
I mean,
physically alter their body, replacing things and such.
By the way, I had a funny part, and I don't know if you noticed this, but do you remember the moment where Taki was going to take Kyoshi home? It was either this episode, I think it was this episode, or maybe it was the last one, where he has him up on his shoulders.
Oh, yeah. I think it was.
And then they go, and then they were going to go visit Noboru in his locker room. Kyoshi's still on his shoulders, and I said to myself, Tachibana's set is right next door to Noboru's locker room set, and they didn't even bother to think, oh, maybe we should have taken Kyoshi off to make it seem like, oh yeah, they drove there and now they're just walking in together, instead of having him back on Taki's shoulders.
Well, and the other interesting thing is that when they use this wrestling club, they've also used that whole locker room for the past episode with one of the soccer players that Shocker eventually captured or kidnapped.
I thought it looked familiar.
And I think that they've used this same room for a few other episodes too in the past.
So here's the thing. If you're an athlete and you're using a locker room that looks like this, don't. Because Shocker's going to come and get you.
It seems like it's Yeah, it's dangerous. It's like it's bugged and everything,
It's
full of
cursed.
shocker things. Yeah, it's very cursed. So
It's,
I better watch out.
I thought it was funny too that the girl Mia or whatever her
Maya,
name was, yeah,
the hot
when
gal.
the
Yeah.
death fog was coming into the wrestling arena, that she, after getting like knocked down for a moment, like raises her head and is like, the death fog. Like, it's just the way she acted in that moment. Try to run out of there from the death fog.
Yeah, I unfortunately did not catch that part of the episode. I was like, did they
You had enough.
actually kill her off and everything here? And it's like, damn it.
You could have rewound it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's this one was a bit goofier, I think, than the last one. Did you want to go in your final thoughts and ratings on this one first?
Yeah, with this one, yeah, it's this episode compared to the previous one. It's a bit goofier, especially when you have Kamen Rider coming in, confronting Saint Mask, eventually Pyrosaurus in the wrestling venue. The way how he entered, and I'm not sure why he took the time to put a robe on himself, but yeah, it's goofier, but at the same time, still a pretty decent episode, and as well as how it turned out. But then, as far as how Pyrosaurus just turned back into Noboru there, and again, to reiterate how we were talking about this beforehand, is that I hope that this turning back into your normal self doesn't become a trend for the remaining 80 episodes here. I just hope it's a one-off sort of thing. But yeah, otherwise, it's a pretty good episode. I would give this one a B minus.
I wrote, this particular episode slows the action down a bit, but has a fun nightclub scene with go-go dancing and everyone turning into skeletons. Other than that, the fun disappears for a while. The battle in the ring was mildly interesting yet silly, as well as the lumberyard fight. What upsets me the most is Kusaka being turned back into himself when that hasn't been the rule of the show from the very beginning. It's very irritating, and it's done to make the boy happy in the end, so he has his big brother. While commendable, it breaks one of the series' big rules. For that, I have to knock the episode a bit, and I gave it a C minus.
Oh, wow.
That irritated me big time, even though I understood why they did it. To me, again, it's just like a huge broken rule that, you know, I don't know, it would be like, instead of He-Man pulling out his sword and saying by the power of Grayskull, it would be like him pulling out, I don't know, a raccoon and saying, and then like turns into He-Man or something like that.
Well, they're, you know, like breaking this sort of rule, you know, it just like what we discussed at the beginning of this episode, like you brought up that it just felt like that they're retconning or trying to erase Takashi from the series, even Ruriko in that matter.
Yeah. Again, if I were her, I'd be pissed. I mean, like, look, I'm sorry the guy busted his legs, but you really have to get rid of me? I mean,
yeah.
All right. So on to the last episode that we're covering here for this podcast episode. It's titled Fossil Man Starfinger.
And that's also the same title too. 2 in a row.
2 in a row. Can we three-peat in a couple of weeks?
Or 4
actually,
weeks.
no, in another month.
Yeah. 2 months actually.
Yeah, it's like time flies. By saying that, I do love Starfinger here. I like the fact that the actor keeps his arms by and large off to the side like a starfish. Outside of it being a starfish, and as cool as that is, and as cool as this chest hair does, with the little tentacle mouthy things, I know. One of the things I dig about this particular starfish suit is it looks like the main angry bird.
Yeah,
the main red angry bird. Because this guy's got a beak on him, and this Starfinger is red.
So, with that, the episode starts out with two brothers hiking in the mountainside and then running into this hideout, which eventually is Starfinger's hideout. And the way how they stumble upon or run into Starfinger is that he was kind of this petrified sort of giant starfish kind of along this riverside here, and then just all of a sudden just turns into this anamorphic looking.
By the way, first and foremost, here's another episode of two brothers. One is significantly older than the other. Was this a thing going on in Japan around this time? I mean, I'm curious.
If it looks like that, then yeah, it's sort of a trend, sort of thing.
But
it's even like that in anime.
I need to read up more on Japanese culture during that time. But yeah, it's weird because when the older brother's ready to take the younger brother's picture in front of this hideout, Starfinger technically is not there. It's hard to miss him because he's a friggin' red starfish that is the size of a person. And yet magically all of a sudden in this next shot, the little boy trips over him. Tokusatsu science. The science of tripping in Tokusatsu. Take that however you will.
and then like I said, he turns into what he is, and then captures the older brother and everything. And then beforehand, you had Tachibana and the Rider Girls camping alongside this riverside. And Tachibana was talking to this one other gal over at his back at his business thing, where all of a sudden gets this emergency message coming through his radio from these two brothers and everything, and he's just kind of weirded out and all that. But then you had Hayato finding the little brother, and it's pretty interesting where they had a couple of scenes. It's just weird in a way where he had this little brother being knocked to the ground, getting his glasses knocked off of his face there from Starfinger. And he goes walking around this mountainside, falls down the hillside, and he really noticed that they're using this dummy. But it's just really weird how this whole scene
funny
transpired with this little kid, but with this dummy that they're using in his place. And then once he's saved by Hayato, he informs him on this Starfinger kidnapping his older brother and everything. And then all of a sudden you see Taki alongside this riverside finding the hideout, trying to about to investigate it, but is confronted by the Shocker Minion as well as Starfinger. And then you had go ahead.
Well, I kind of want to jump in with some points and stuff here before, we do get all the way to the end. I think I may have mentioned this before, but I'm just really bummed out anymore that Shocker lackeys tend to wear luchador masks now instead of cool face paint and maybe special goggles.
It's literally right after that whole. It's literally right after that Cacto episodes where they started wearing that luchador mask.
Yeah. And have you gotten to the jail thing yet?
No, I'm gonna eventually get around to that here, but yeah, that's the one thing I want to get around to.
And I want to just, for the people who are watching this, on YouTube and elsewhere, I want to share my screen so you can get an idea of what Starfinger looks like here.
Yeah, just but while he's doing that here, okay.
All right. So this is Starfinger right here.
Yeah, I'm just kind of
look at that.
I'm just kind of waiting. Here we go.
That nice thing. I mean, that's a man right there.
Yeah, the way how Kent described it looked like that the main red angry bird there. Yeah, it does definitely look like him.
It does. Yeah. Whoops.
So yeah.
That's what Starfinger looks like.
So anyways, back into the kind of the whole premise here. Kamen Rider comes in and confronts Starfinger, but unfortunately he's no match because somehow a starfish is strong as like a fossil or a rock, that sort of thing. That's sort of where the whole episode title comes in, the Fossil Man, Starfinger. And I'm not sure why that's the case. I know with fossils and everything being prehistoric and everything, although starfishes, they're still alive to this day.
Well, yeah, and I think that the thing is this is supposed to be a prehistoric one. But again, okay, we could argue that in a way the show is sort of maybe breaking rules again here, maybe, because we don't get any background story of this individual who was turned into Starfinger. It's almost as if Starfinger has been around for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
Even though he does talk about some shocker plans at one point, it's as if this dude has been hanging out kind of in this general area for quite some time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then saying that he's strong or tough as a rock and stuff, it's like, how can he move around then?
Yeah.
For that matter. But then back into this is that Kamen Rider was no match for him because of how quote unquote tough Starfinger is, and gets knocked over this cliff or ridge where this waterfall is. And Taki runs into Tachibana when he goes into this cave. And then both run into Starfinger and the minions, get captured. And then this is where you want to get into, is that both of them are put into this jail in the Shocker or into Starfinger's hideout there. And is joined by the older brother there. And then eventually a disguised Hayato.
It's a terrible disguise.
And it's like, how did he end up in this jail to begin with? Because he gets knocked off from this waterfall ridge here. Nowhere to be found. We don't even see him since. But then he winds up, yes, I know, winds up in this jail without any reason whatsoever except for, yes, that's right, Tokusatsu science.
This is not Time Out. It's Tokusatsu.
Well, it was mainly Time Out, but now
I know, not anymore. Now this means Tokusatsu Toho science, or Toei science, whatever. Maybe he got thrown in jail because he refused to die when being thrown off the waterfall. You didn't die. Now get thrown in jail.
You're stretching that a little too far, but
yes. Hey, dude, again, look at how incompetent and stupid Shocker is at times. I mean, I'm not going to put it past, hey, you were supposed to die off of that because that's kind of high. Like,
yeah, but yeah, he disguises himself by putting on a beard on his face.
Yep.
It is like both Taki and Tachibana didn't realize who he was before
Oh, man.
putting like taking the beard off of his face.
That's what makes it worse. It's not just that the disguise is awful, it's that Tachibana and Taki don't even recognize him. And Hayato's in the corner going,
With that weird looking expression there.
I mean, that's exactly what he did.
And then the way how they try to get out of the Shocker jail here is pretty hilarious, where they start a ruckus. You had the older brother of this younger brother here just randomly punching Taki in the face there and causing the ruckus, luring the Shocker minions. And then you had this really sort of unnecessarily long, sort of sped up scene of just like Tachibana, Taki, Hayato, and the older brother just beating the living shit out of the Shocker minions, and then just sort of this battle royale. I probably maybe lasted for maybe about a minute or something. It seemed maybe a bit longer than that, but it was sort of sped up, and then all of a sudden get to the point to where that all of the Shocker minions are just piling up in this corner of the jail, and then the four get out of the jail there and disguising themselves as the minions there, but that disguise didn't quite last long.
Yeah, and it's a very sped up moment, and you got chipmunk sounds going on. I'm sure, again, because it's supposed to be a show for younger audiences, it was meant to be somewhat hilarious, and it was. But at the same time, it's one of those hilarious moments that is just too much.
That, and then it's like, is this sort of post-production thing for this particular sequence necessary for it? What's the reason behind it? I mean, sure, maybe try to speed up the scene, but I would at least say in a post-production scene, just show a little bit of the regular original footage, not sped up, but just not have it run so long.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I have to keep reminding myself it's a kid's show, but there's got to be a line drawn in the sand, or maybe even in the dirt, where as writers and producers of this series, there's a line that you don't cross, even if it's something that's made for younger kids. To me, this was going past that line.
Does it seem like it's sort of like that the rule breaking where you had Purosaurus turn him back into normal person? Okay.
No, to me, no, it's not that. No, it's no, it's not that bad. that was like, dude, we were like, what were we thinking type of thing. This one, it's goofy is what it is. So.
Yeah. So with that, it doesn't take long for the other minions and Starfinger to find out that people that these four have escaped and that they were also disguised. And then you had Hayato sabotaging the base there and everything. It eventually led to like all four escaping, as well as escaping and then having the hideout explode. But for whatever reason, Starfinger somehow survived that explosion.
Yep.
And as well as Hayato, because you don't see him until he was already Kamen Rider confronting Starfinger. So I would at least have to say that round of the sequence of how Starfinger mysteriously escaping from the hideout. I would say tokusatsu science there.
Yep.
But yeah, so Kamen Rider finds out Starfinger's weakness, which is water, and defeats them right there at the very end of the episode. And yeah, so that's how it all ends.
Yeah. This was a very interesting episode. Like I had said at the top of this show, I was a tad bored with episode 17, and I was even a little bit more bored with episode 18. This one, I think, really. I don't really want to compliment the writing because I don't believe the writing here is really all that good.
Maybe criticize it or critique it.
Yeah, like okay, it's sort of hard to get this out because I'm trying to say two things that are opposites but mean both at the same time. I'm not saying that I have to have battles all the time to keep my attention, but at the same time, if you're not going to have action, the writing in terms of the dialogue and the progression of the story has to be good. And however, when you're dealing with a kid's show, you know that the writing is never going to be as sophisticated because, again, you got to write down to a lower level to where children can understand what is going on, which is fine. And the problem with that, though, as a 38-year-old guy, I mean, I don't technically have a problem with that, but you get into situations, and we've talked about it with this show. Part of it is because of how old it is. It strains certain elements of credulity and patience on my part, and it's kind of dull. And so part of me is kind of hoping that maybe there would have been more action to it because, again, it's a kid's show. You kind of want more action because, again, kids are impatient as well. But then again, as an adult, I can do without action unless the writing's good. The writing here, though, really isn't. So it's just, it's hargle blargle. But
Okay.
my point is, the writing's not good either way, and I guess maybe I would prefer more action for this particular episode. Starfinger is one of my favorite Shocker generals up to this point. Again, I just like the design and his chest hair deal there. I mean, that's just wonderful. There was potential here, and I thought that it wasn't fully realized with this episode. And the way this episode ended as well, it was very odd how Starfinger died. I still did he die simply because he fell off the waterfall?
Died. Well, he did. He was still alive, but then he just fell over.
Yeah.
Again. Well, simply because that Kamen Rider finds out that water was his weakness.
Which is dumb.
Which, fighting in water and all that, I think just led to him just being weak and completely defeated. But yeah, it is, I would say it's one of those really, I'd probably say one of those really lackluster sort of easy things to get out of Starfinger being like, what they're saying, tough as a rock and everything, is I think
is like that why the water was his weakness?
Maybe I think that
it's a Pokemon rule.
Maybe they were thinking is like maybe we sort of overpowered Starfinger a bit, the way how making him being tough as a rock, and it's like trying to find their way out of this whole predicament. I think they sort of written themselves in the corner, and that's probably how they came up with.
You know what I would have done if I were on that set? I would have been like, okay, you got it here. Water is his weakness, and I get it. Like, he's a fossil. You're playing the whole water rock thing because, water turns this sort of thing into mush. I guess you get enough water. But he's a fucking starfish. What the fuck are you thinking? Starfish live in water, numbnuts. I mean,
or just like find some kind of dynamite and just throw it at Starfinger and
this was one of those times I would
blow
have
him
been
up that way.
okay with a rider kick or a rider punch or something like that. As much as they overplayed that stuff for the first 12 or so episodes, I would have rather had that than this.
Or just ram the motorcycle into
That
Starfinger.
too. I mean, beat him to death with the stick you find too. I mean, that to me would have made more sense than a star dying in water. I mean, that just makes no sense. And the whole episode ends very abruptly too. Usually there's at least a little bit of a transition. There really isn't for this one. It's like, Starfinger dead. The end. To be continued. The end.
Yeah.
My God. What fuckery. I mean, just...
So it sounds like maybe we should just go into our final thoughts on this one.
We do. Yes, we should. Let's pull up my notes here. And I think you're going to be a tad surprised as far as my rate. A unique episode that brings in a shocker villain I'm considering to be one of my favorites so far. The look and traits of Starfinger are fun, and I get a little Virus vibes of mixed entertainment value. Outside of Starfinger, I found myself not as interested in the episode as others, meaning other episodes, although more than the previous. So more or less an average episode.
That sounds about right. Yeah, with this one, it's a pretty interesting episode. A good concept as far as Starfinger goes, but as far as him being tough as a rock and then sort of being like a prehistoric sort of creature, even though starfishes are still around today. So I'm not sure sort of their reasoning behind his sort of background here and him being tough as a rock. And if that's the case, why is he still moving around pretty easily in that regard? And then with the writing and everything, like what we talked about, them sort of writing themselves in the corner and trying to find a way out of trying to have him be defeated, and then let's have water be his weakness.
Yeah,
in that regard. And
yeah, I don't know.
And then that jail scene too. Yeah, it's a tokusatsu show, so it's no shocker. No pun intended.
You see what you did there.
No pun intended. So, but yeah, with what's going on here, it's a Kamen Rider episode. So with that being said, I give episode 18 here, I would say a B.
Oh, wow. With that said, thank you so much for listening or watching to our episode today, and we will be back in a couple weeks starting Kong month. King Kong turns 90 years old starting next month, and again, we will have our first episode of next month be about just talking about King Kong, various movies, his legacy, and sort of what he's meant to, giant monster cinema and I think cinema in general. And then 2 weeks after that, we will do a commentary on Son of Kong. So thank you so much for listening or watching to us, and we will be back in a couple of weeks celebrating King Kong.
Yeah, and before we sign off here, I just want to say one more thing here as far as housekeeping. If you see the subscribe button down below, excuse me, make sure to hit that button as well as the like button as well and the notification bell icon. Make sure you get notified of any new videos or whenever we go live. And you can find us all in one place at our Linktree page right there in front of your screen at Daikaiju Network. As far as video platforms, of course, YouTube, Twitch, Rumble, Facebook Live, as well as Odyssey. And we have audio versions of our episodes at Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, as well as TuneIn. And you can find both video and audio versions of our episodes at our own website at DaikaijuNetwork.com. So with that, thanks for watching, and we'll see you all in a couple weeks. So peace out.